Sacco and Felice, New York and New Jersey's premier attorneys at law. Their team brings decades of experience across a wide range of practice areas. Whatever life brings, they're your legal team. From everyday matters to complex cases, they've got you covered with the experience you need and the results you want. Because when life gets complicated, they make it simple. SaccoFelice.com. SACCOFILLAS.com. 2 C's, 2 L's.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby.
It's the final countdown.
Well, we're down to 3 hours. Actually, 2 hours and 58 minutes. Oh, 2 hours and 57 minutes.
How many seconds?
It is a countdown after
yeah.
all. Listen, people are, all day long, people are asking me, I get texts from all over the world, from England, France, and, you know, and I tell them the truth. You know what the truth is? I don't know what's going to happen.
I know everyone's wondering what is going to happen with President Trump, because to your point, John, he sent an 8 p.m. WABC time deadline. And like you said, it's less than 3 hours away. And his message was pretty clear. I want to read one of the comments. He said, he warns that whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again if Iran doesn't agree to a deal to end the war.
The Brits texted me.
And
you know what I said to them? If you want to ask me this question on Tuesday afternoon, I'm just to say, I really don't know.
I don't know either. And the new news that just came in is that the Pakistan Prime Minister put out a message saying that he's calling for a ceasefire for 2 weeks. He says Iran opened the Strait of Hormuz. Everybody else stop bombing. He's trying to get some sort of a halt or a broker deal. And the White House just came back literally about 2 minutes ago saying, we're aware of the message from the Prime Minister. We'll let you know what we think soon. So I don't know either, John.
Forget about it.
He didn't say forget about it. But, you know, obviously, look, I think President Trump, whatever happens tonight, he has made so many attempts to try to get to a deal with Iran. And you cannot have them get a nuclear weapon. That's the bottom line. Judge Weinberg.
The whole strategy is delay, and you wake up one day and they have nuclear weapons. Delay, and they have better ballistic missiles to hit Europe and the United States. So it's time to wake up. Clinton got schnookered by the North Koreans. Trump should not be schnookered by Iran.
Do you remember what was going on when Trump became president in 2016, 2017? That little short guy in Korea.
Yeah, Rocket Man.
Yep. Was threatening the whole world.
Yeah, and now Trump even says he has good relations with them, John, to your point. He picks up
really
the phone.
Backed down.
Hey,
yes.
He's really backed down.
He respected strength. He respected Trump, because when Trump says, you don't stop screwing around, we're going to wipe you out. He says, okay.
Yeah, and you know why, John? Because you look at the history of all these other presidents. It's been appeasement. It's sending the pallets of cash. They know when President Trump says, I might wipe you off the face of this earth, that he just might do it.
And for the last 4 years, they knew they could get away with anything because he wasn't going to do anything.
Right. They knew it. Under Biden, it was appeasement, Craig.
But
absolutely.
Trump's threats aren't veiled threats. They know that he'll follow through on the threat, so they're all afraid.
Yeah, and that's why I don't know. What do you think's going to happen tonight, Craig and Judge? I'm curious your thoughts.
You know, the judge and I were talking before. I think he's got to do something. I think that if he doesn't do anything, it's going to be another 2 weeks, then another 2 weeks. He's got to send a message. He was ready tonight to take action. Yeah. Maybe not the 100% of the action he was going to take, but he's going to do something.
What do you think,
Well, let's
Judge?
see. We got other people calling in. We got KT calling in, too.
Yes, we do.
I'll defer to KT.
You'll defer to KT. Okay.
I'll defer to KT.
I will, too. So let's go to KT, since we all defer to her. KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor. KT, what do you think is going to happen? It's less than 3 hours.
First of all, I think he is negotiating, and I think he is negotiating with some members of the Iranian regime. Now, is the Iranian regime a solid, cohesive group? No. We have now taken out most of their senior leadership, military, civilian. and the mullahs. And so he is negotiating with somebody, but not everybody. And my guess is he's negotiating with a civilian leadership and maybe not the IRGC. And that's why you're getting mixed messages, where on one hand, the Iranians have said, we're negotiating, and then they say, no, we're not negotiating. It's sort of, who are you negotiating with? There's probably not one coherent voice. Number two, I think he may have the outlines of a deal. If you look at what whoever it is he's negotiating with has said, they've dropped the part about nuclear weapons. They talk about that they want the fighting to stop, that they want to have the sanctions lifted, that they want various things, but they don't mention anymore that they want to keep their enriched uranium or they want nuclear weapons or the missiles. It's like they're ignoring it, or maybe only the group that we're talking to is ignoring it. But President Trump's conditions have not changed. No nuclear weapons, no enhanced uranium, no missiles, no proxies to fight and kill Americans, and now open the Strait of Hormuz. So I think they're talking, and I do think that President Trump is not going to let the deadline pass without something, whether it's an additional military move or whether it's an announcement that they're coming closer together and both sides just are negotiating under the good offices of the Pakistanis. But I don't think this passes with no notice and nothing happened.
Yeah, I agree. I think something. I mean, he was saying before that he said within 4 hours. I mean, this is how specific he was. Prior to some of these new, reach out by the Pakistan prime minister and the others, KT, he was saying in 4 hours we could wipe out every bridge, every power plant. So there may be, even what Craig was just saying, like maybe some things are hit and
even the Pope panicked.
Yeah, even the Pope panicked. Yes, that's for sure.
He's been panicked from the beginning.
So look, Trump plays, they all fall into Trump's sort of trap, right? Because Trump always goes in with this huge demand, and then everybody gets all excited and condemns him. And today the media and the Democrats and the Europeans are all saying Donald Trump is going to use nuclear weapons to kill 93 million people. Wait a minute, that's not at all what he said, but that's how they want to interpret it. And so I think President Trump has got, I know Trump well enough. I've been in the Situation Room with him when we've made the point to him that if you fail, your whole presidency could rest on it. In the first couple of weeks of his first term, he'd made the decision to attack the airfields in Syria, which were being used to have planes take off from and bomb with chemical weapons the Syrian people. And it was right before President Trump's Mar-a-Lago summit, the first meeting with the Chinese president, and I pointed out, look, if this goes wrong, no fault of your own, but if this goes wrong somehow, it's going to haunt your presidency from the very beginning. And he went ahead and did it anyway. He is willing to take a calculated risk. He's not a big risk taker, but a calculated risk taker.
And were you there when the Chinese president was surprised?
I was in the Situation Room, and President Trump was in Mar-a-Lago with the Chinese president. The Chinese president was blown away.
Yeah, it was, and by the way, you know who he has on? He's supposed to meet tonight, I think, with an ambassador from India was on his schedule. Well, so he might be surprised tonight too, right, KT?
I think that what President Trump understands is that if he fails, the same way that if he had failed in rescuing the American pilot, and let's say a lot of Americans had died or we had been caught into some firefight, that Donald Trump would be accused of all sorts of things and the impeachments would begin. And I think President Trump also understands the high risk he's doing to his own presidency. That's why I'm pretty convinced he's got something going on.
You know what I also applaud, KT, President Trump. He has the courage. I mean, Craig and the judge and John and I were talking about this earlier. All these other presidents, it was appeasement. They talked about wanting to do this. He has the courage to do it. And because he said this yesterday, I'm doing this for future generations. He understands the magnitude of the moment. And this is a moment now in Iran that you wonder, will it happen again? Will this moment be ready again?
This moment won't come again because Iran will get nuclear weapons. They've made it really clear. There's nothing that's going to stop this current regime. Now, a changed regime because of changed circumstances, military or otherwise, may have a different result, but it's pretty clear that Iran is just not going to stop its quest for a nuclear weapon. And what does that mean? Think of what Iran is doing now, holding the world hostage in the Strait of Hormuz by stopping shipping. Can you imagine if that was an Iran that had nuclear weapons? And then they would hold the world hostage by saying, well, we're going to use our nuclear weapons, or we're going to, nuke whatever we're going to do. And we all know that they're willing to do stuff like that, right? That they're not rational actors in the sense that we understand it. To me, if Iran has nuclear weapons, it's too late. Iran is like having nuclear weapons in the hands of Adolf Hitler during World War II. That's why it's so important to stop it now, even if we have to pay a price for it, because the price we pay later is inconceivable.
Absolutely. Judge Weinberg.
KT, I think you're absolutely right. The problem is delay does not work for us. It works for Iran. Every time you delay, they get stronger. They regroup.
Yes.
And the second point I would make, Jan, I want your thoughts about this. Who do you negotiate with? Apparently, there have been reports coming out of Iran and probably through U.S. and Israel intelligence that there's a dispute going on between the president of the country and the Revolutionary Guard leadership, yes, and that they're angry at each other. Now, whether that's theater and it's trying to say that there's a so-called moderate there or not, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, how do you cut a deal when you can't deliver? So even if the president of Iran says, yes, we have a deal, the Revolutionary Guard can go do what they want to do.
The Revolutionary Guard isn't just the military. It's the military, it's the intelligence service, it's the thugs on the motorcycles on the street that beat up women who aren't wearing headscarves.
And the guys who control the economy. They control the businesses.
And they can 60% of the economy. It's as if our armed forces would own all of our major weapons manufacturers and some energy industries as well. So maybe there's some kind of a deal. Maybe those people are willing to sacrifice their revolutionary ideas if they can hang on to their money and their power. Again, we're not privy to these negotiations, but Donald Trump is negotiating with somebody, and they have a plan, and I have confidence that the president knows exactly what he's doing, and I think he runs out of patience, and he's not going to be played along, Judge. As you've said, how can you trust them? They played along Obama, they played along Biden, they played along Bush, frankly. They don't play along Donald Trump, and so I do think that he's got an end goal in sight. It may be that we have a military action to take out, for example, the oil pipelines or the oil facilities on Kurg Island, and we show the Iranians, okay, we can do this. You want us to do something more tomorrow, or do you want to settle?
Probably the Kurg Island.
Kurg Island is this island that sits in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, and it has two things on it. It has naval bases, military bases, and it has docks. The pipelines go to Kurg Island with the oil. The tankers come up to Kurg Island, they get filled up, they go on their way. We have so far destroyed military sites on Kurg Island, and then yesterday we did another bombing attack on the sort of remaining military facilities on Kurg Island. But we never touched the energy industry. We never touched the pipelines. We didn't touch the infrastructure. We could do that, and that then destroys 50-60% of Iran's income overnight.
Yeah, that's a big deal. KT, the other thing too, in the middle of all this, the Democrats, I can't believe they've come out and they are like accusing him of war crimes already because he hit a bridge that was also used by the IRGC.
I had so much sympathy. I was on one of the British shows today, Piers Morgan and BBC, and I kept thinking of what John said when he was on French television last week. They're spinning their own narrative. I mean, they've decided that when Trump used the word civilization, that he was going to nuke 93 million people tonight. They know that that's not what he meant, but they're interested in clickbait, or they're interested in getting everybody whooped up. Just let Donald Trump see these negotiations through. There'll be plenty of time. If this fails, Donald Trump will be in so much political trouble that there'll be plenty of time that these people can go after him. But I say give him 48 hours. Let's see what happens.
I agree. Boy, it's going to be interesting. KT, thank you so much. We love having you, and we always back America and pray for America and for the free world. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, KT.
Thank you. And John, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz now joining us. Professor Dershowitz, your thoughts? This is the final countdown.
Well, it's total nonsense that any of this comes even close to being war crimes. I just saw the former advisor to the president, military advisor to the Democrat president on television saying it's a war crime, it's a war crime. Let me be very clear. I'm an expert in this. I've been teaching this. I've been writing about it for years. Attacking the industrial base of a country to defeat them militarily has been done since the first beginning of wartime back 3,000 years ago. You cannot name a war in which a country didn't try to destroy the industrial base of a country. Half of our activity in the Second World War was attacking business, attacking industry, attacking the ability of the country to continue to function. That's the way wars are fought. Now, you got a couple of academics sitting at ivory towers at Harvard and Yale who don't know anything about this, who are saying, well, you can't attack anything that's civilian. Yes, you can, if it helps them win the war, and if by attacking them you can encourage peace and encourage the end of the war. It's not a war crime, and it's just nonsense to say it is. What you're doing is you're saying every single country in history has been guilty of war crimes, which means that no one's guilty of war crimes. Now, there is one country here that's guilty of war crimes, Iran. Nobody seems to be talking about that. They bombed buildings. They killed a family named Gershowitz in Haifa 2 nights ago or last night. I didn't even know if they're related to me, but they target civilians, and then they take individual kids and say, line up on a bridge and become human shields. Those are war crimes. But attacking the industrial base of a country to bring it to its knees is conventional warfare. You don't have to simply attack guns and rockets. You can attack their ability to wage war through their industries.
You know, Professor Dershowitz, I 100% agree with you. Obviously, you're the legal expert here. But what about the war crimes of the fact that the Iranian regime has killed 45,000, according to President Trump, of its own people in just the last few months alone? And none of those people that are out there calling the president a war criminal today were complaining about 45 innocent civilians who came out to peacefully protest that were slaughtered by their own regime. That's a war crime.
Well, no, it's not. Let me explain how absurd war crimes are. Under war crimes, you can kill 1 million of your own people. You can kill 1 million of your own people. It's not a war crime to kill your own people. What the Nazis did to the Jews of Germany was not a war crime. What they did to the Jews of Poland was a war crime. But you can do anything you want to your own citizens, not a war crime. It may be a crime against humanity. It may be a lot of other things, but it's not a war crime if it's your own people. That's how stupid this law of war is. You know, if you get a bunch of academics sitting in a room and deciding what is and what isn't a war crime, you're going to get nowhere. You got to use common sense. I wish the people who are making these rules would listen to your program. Common sense. Common sense, of course, would make that a war crime. But under the technical definition of war crime, killing 40,000 of your own people is not a war crime. It is a war crime to kill civilians of the other side purposely and deliberately, but not if they use them as human shields. You know, even God forbid this would ever happen, and I'm sure it never would happen. Let's assume that the president announced he's going to go after Iran's nuclear capacity because he believes that Iran will blow up the world with nuclear bombs, blow up Israel, blow up the United States. And they put children in front of the nuclear facilities. And the United States has 3 options. One, send troops in on the ground, which will kill a lot of Americans, or do nothing, or bomb the facility and knowing that there'll be children killed. What is the logical thing to do under those circumstances? It may be horrible and brutal, but you can't do nothing and let Iran develop a nuclear weapon if you believe they're going to use it. And the idea that you allow them to prevent you from taking military action by putting children in front, that's their war crime, not the war crime of the country that then uses military action to stop them from developing a bomb. These are complicated and difficult issues.
No, you're right, because they're throwing around the words. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're diluting the term to make it meaningless. What they're saying is the United States committed war crimes in every war that it's been involved in, and if everybody is committing war crimes, nobody is committing war crimes. And so we have to have a sensible redrafting of what constitutes a war crime and depoliticize it. Today, the definition of a war crime by the Democrats is whatever Donald Trump does, and it's so obvious and so apparent, and yet they seem to get away with it.
Yeah, and if Iran kills 40,000 of their own people, it's not a war crime. Yeah, and the Pope does not condemned Iran for killing 40,000 of their own people? Craig, you wanted to say a few things.
You know what I was going to say, Professor?
Certainly the Pope is not bound by war crime definitions. The Pope should be, obviously, condemning the killing by Iran of their own people. The Pope should be condemning the use of children as human shields. Then he has much more credibility to condemn other things as well.
Right, I agree.
You know, Professor, I don't think this is about war crimes, and I don't think the Democratic lawmakers believe it's war crimes. They're just trying to control the narrative. They're trying to poison the narrative so that they can be victorious in the midterms.
Look, what we all hope is that the president, by his threats, will bring Iran to the bargaining table. Now, let me tell you what I worry about most. Let's assume he brings them to the bargaining table over the Straits of Hormuz, and he wins, and they open up the straits.
Then what?
They still maintain their nuclear ability. He hasn't won that war. That's the status quo. That's the way it was before the war. That's just a return to where it was. The war cannot be won, and Trump cannot stop this war until Iran is not capable of deploying any nuclear weapons. Opening up the Straits of Iran is not a victory. It's what it was before.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And the fact of the matter is this regime has to be changed because you can't cut a deal with people who are radical Islamist terrorists, because they'll just come back at you just like they said they would. They'll come back until they're eliminated.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they've shown that for the last many, many, many decades. And there has to be regime change. For there to be total victory, there has to be regime change. For there to be partial victory, there has to be removal of all their enriched nuclear material. For there to be a tie, it's the opening of the Straits of Hormuz. That's a tie.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. Wow. Professor Dershowitz, definitely keep us posted. This is such an enormous story, and I can't think of a better person than you to talk with you about it.
We'll know in a little more than 2.5 hours.
Yes, we will.
The final countdown.
Good luck to America. Good luck to the world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The right decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Professor Dershowitz's stakes are so high. And, John, we're going to take a break. And we have, Dragon. We have Brigadier General John Tykert. We're going to talk about the military.
One smart guy, and I'm going to ask him too, because he was, Brigadier General in Space Command. I'll ask him, anything they saw on the far end of the moon.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, with us today, calling in, is former Brigadier General John Tykert from Space Command. John, what the heck? Dragon. His nickname is
Dragon.
What the heck is going on?
John and Rita, thanks for having me, and I'll tell you what's going on. The clock is ticking, and we have 2.5 hours till a deadline, and I really hope that the Iranian regime realize that the president is serious, his threats are credible, and if they don't start acting in good faith, then they will see the wrath of the American military in about 2.5 hours.
I agree with you 110%, because Trump, what he says, he means. So he says he's going to do X, Y, Z. He's going to do X, Y, Z.
I think you're right. And I think there are two major target sets that we have not struck in the last 5.5 weeks. We have not struck their energy, and that is how they fund the regime. And if we started to strike Karg Island, then it would strangle their funding. And then we really haven't focused on regime change targets. That is striking internal security sites or things like it. And I think that tonight we might start striking both of those target sets. And those are the biggest nightmare of the regime because they need their funding and they need their internal security. And if we start taking it out, then they'll be left naked.
My friend Michael says to me, I won't mention his last name, watch Kwang Island.
I think that is a linchpin. 90% of the oil exports for Iran come through Karg. And if we wanted to cut off the regime's ability to fund itself, that is where we would start. And I think just last night, you started to see us striking some of the military sites on Karg. We had done that a couple weeks ago. I call that preparation of the battlefield. That means that we are doing what we need to do now in the military realm so that we can do what we need to do subsequently. And I think that means strikes on the energy infrastructure on that island.
Well, what do you think, Rita?
Well, I think, General Teichert, I agree. I think he's going to hit Karg because they sort of softened it with some military strikes. I also think some others. I'm curious also, General Teichert, today, one of the most troubling things, and this is par for the course with this evil regime of Iran, they had all these women and children on the bridges. And I don't know. I saw a story that about 1% of the population there in Iran has access to the internet. They've been in an internet blackout because the regime pulled the plug on the internet there for some time. So I don't know if they know that Trump has an 8:00 p.m. Eastern time deadline or not. But they're saying, oh, come out and show your patriotism. How much does that complicate a military effort?
Well, I just think it demonstrates how absolutely evil this regime is. They slaughtered 45,000 of their own a couple of months ago. They have repressed them for 4.5 decades, and now they're inviting them to come out, or really probably telling them to come out and surround some bridges and some power plants. I don't think that all of Trump's bluster about power plants and bridges is really where this strike is going to happen. I think it's going to be on Karg. I think it's on some other energy infrastructure, and I think it's on the regime's ability to maintain power. And I also think it might have just baited the regime into doing what Trump knew they would do, which is abuse their people, which is to further prove why we need to remove the regime.
Right. It could be a bit of a deflection. I do think he's going to do something tonight. One of the things is this offer from Pakistan. I don't know if you saw this, General Teichert. In the last few minutes, the Pakistan prime minister came out and said he's kind of playing mediator between Iran and the U.S. And he's asking for a 2-week ceasefire. The Pakistani prime minister saying that there are positive developments. What does a 2-week ceasefire do militarily to help Iran?
Well, I just think this is kicking the can down the road. Yeah. I mean, just like John said, the president is credible when he makes a threat, and he is serious and he means what he says. And unless you really see a good faith act by Iran to negotiate, including if they proved immediately they would open up the Strait of Hormuz, that would change the calculus. But short of that, just kicking the cans for 2 weeks really just gives them a chance to regroup a little bit and doesn't do anything to help us solve the ultimate problem, which is to get rid of this regime, open up the strait, and take care of their nuclear program once and for all.
Let's go up to the moon. Have you heard anything on Artemis?
You know what? My heart is bursting with pride of what we have just been seeing and just been doing. In fact, just next to me is a stamp collection I have that has a whole sheet of Apollo 8 and the Earthrise over the surface of the moon on Christmas Eve Day, way back in 1968. And just to see some of those pictures again of the Earth rising over the surface of the moon should make all of humanity proud, and it certainly does me, and certainly should every American as well.
Now, the back end of the moon, the astronaut said it looks a little bit different than the front end?
I have heard that, and, I think they got better pictures because of the quality of the cameras we have now. Even way back in the day when those Apollo 8 astronauts went around the moon, or when Michael Collins on Apollo 11 circled the moon while his comrades Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went down to the surface of the moon, that we could see it, but not with the high quality view that we now have. I don't know if things have changed. There's been some more impacts of meteors, but I just think the high quality nature of the pictures we are seeing of the Earth rise and of the moon on all sides, it is just stunning. And like I said, my heart is filled.
Judge?
Good to talk to you again. Can I go back to Iran, please?
Let's do it, Judge.
All right. This is my problem with opening up the Straits of Hormuz and buying another couple of weeks. That, as my colleague Craig Eaton has pointed out and Professor Dershowitz has pointed out, that just brings you back to the status quo. What's the big deal? They never should have closed it down in the first place. We still have the threats of ballistic missiles. We still have the threats of the drones. We still have the threats to our allies in the Gulf and to Israel. We still have them moving towards nuclear weaponry. So status quo ante is not an answer.
No, and I think, Judge, I think you're right. And I think the real answer is that we need to open up the strait. We need a final disposition and destruction of every residual part of their nuclear program. and we need to give the people of Iran a chance to rise up. They have been repressed for 4.5 decades. We need to start focusing our targeting efforts on doing something so we can remove the regime, because you're right. If the regime is still there, then there is always a threat. And we need to do what we can now alongside of Israel to allow the protesters and opposition groups a last chance, their best chance ever, to shed this regime once and for all.
Greg Eaton.
I mean, I think that's great, General. What we need to do is we need to give these people some relief in Iran, let them know that they can have their country and feel safe there. But if, like the judge just said, opening up the strait isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for total destruction of their nuclear capabilities.
That's right. And I think that there is still a good possibility of regime change if we don't give up. And that starts typically by you find somewhere where there's a massive population that's against the regime, and that starts to be your sanctuary. And then you arm them and you train and equip them and provide them air cover, and then they start to march towards Tehran, and they're the nucleus around which regime change takes place. But we've got to open the strait. We've got to take care of the nuclear program. We've got to keep chipping away at the threats they provide to humanity, and we've got to provide top cover to give the population of Iran a chance to rise up and overthrow this regime.
I have a question for you, General. President Trump has said 2 to 3 weeks. At least that's what he said last week, when he did his address to the nation. Do you think these things that we're talking about that are major things could be done in that time?
Rita, I always have said we should not set timelines. We should set events or objectives and achieve those objectives regardless of how long it takes. But I do think that tonight is pivotal. And if we start shifting towards target sets that thus far have been sanctuaries for the regime, and I'm talking about energy targets, and I'm talking about those internal security sites that maintain a grip on the country for them, I think if we focus on that tonight, then it provides the pressure and maybe the top cover that can allow things to happen faster than we would imagine.
Yeah, let's pray. Let's pray.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. General, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. We'll see what happens. Wow. Thank you.
Well,
you got it. Have a good night, y'all.
2 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And how about the top news of the day? Anything
good? Just top news.
Yeah, exactly. How do you top that?
It's the top news of the day. Here's Rita Cosby.
Well, John, everybody's talking, of course, about the final countdown, 8 p.m. Eastern time, for Iran to make a deal or face a massive attack by the United States. President Trump has warned that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran doesn't make a deal to end the war, promising to destroy the country's power plants and bridges. We'll keep you posted on that. That is, of course, the biggest story in the world. And also, the first pictures of the far side of the moon taken by the Artemis 2 crew are available for the world to see. One of the 2 photos shows Earth set. That's the moment that the Earth dropped out of view from the opposite side of the moon. That's interesting. The other shows a solar eclipse with the moon completely blocking the moon, which the crew witnessed near the end of their lunar flyby. So very cool. And John, we're going to take a break, and we have John Solomon with some big scoops. We'll see what he's hearing coming from the White House and elsewhere, and so much more after the break.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now with some big breaking news. Again, the final countdown, the deadline to what could happen in Iran could happen in the next 2.5 hours, less than 2.5 hours. Joining us for everything is John Solomon, the founder of Just the News. John, what do you got?
Well, President Trump just said a few minutes ago that there are some heated negotiations. That's his choice of words, ongoing in these final hours before the 8 p.m. deadline tonight. Iran is going to have to open up the Strait of Hormuz or announce that, I think, for the president to make any concession, even a temporary ceasefire. I think the president's going to hold firm on that. Now, about an hour and a half ago, one of our intermediaries in the negotiations, the foreign minister from Pakistan, said, I'd like to have a 2-week hold on the deadline, move the deadline out 2 weeks because there's been a lot of substantive, meaningful conversation going on. The president hasn't responded to that yet.
He just simply said, we're in heated negotiations, and I'm going to see how this plays out. So we're keeping a close eye on it. There are signs that negotiations are making some progress. Now, it's Iran, 47 years of bad faith. So any negotiation is going to have a significant compliance and verification process. The U.S. negotiators I talked to a little bit ago, seeming a little bit optimistic, but also cautious, saying, hey, President Trump could let it all fly at 8 o'clock, and it would be on Iran because they've not yet made the deal we're willing to accept. Meanwhile, while that's going on, there's some signs that the civilian leadership of Iran and the IRGC may not be on the same page. IRGC seems to want to take this fight out longer, make it keep going, fight to death if necessary. The civilians, I think, leadership, more looking at the overall devastation of Iran, realizing they're being crushed day by day. There's no way they're going to win against the United States, and perhaps being in a more conciliatory mode than a military. How that plays out in these negotiations is something everybody in the Trump administration is watching very closely.
You know, John, I want to ask you, do you know who's running the country? I mean, that's an honest question because you got the son of the Ayatollah. We don't even know if he's alive or dead, right? He might be.
He doesn't know whether
he doesn't know. He might be in a coma. And then we heard yesterday from Trump, the president made a really interesting statement, John, and he said the way that they have had to send a message to Iran, and he was joking, but not really joking. He's like, you have to send a message to somebody and then a kid runs it up to the mountain because they don't like as he said, we're back in the Stone Age in terms of communication. So do we have any idea who are they talking to?
We know for sure that they're talking to at least one member of parliament that's fairly senior and one member of the foreign affairs, or basically their State Department, the Iranian State Department, for lack of a better word. Then they seem to go out to a coalition of mullahs, the ruling council, and try to get consensus, and they come back. So it is a very awkward process. And particularly when you get down to the final few hours, that's not very conducive to quick turnaround, right? Because the kid may have to run up the mountain, or the kid, a pigeon carrier might have to deliver a message, and time is ticking down very quickly. It is very awkward. That said, the people negotiating on our behalf, Pakistan, Qatar particularly, we've got a great relationship. We trust their advice. They're able to get pretty good assessments of what's serious, what's not, and what the dynamic is behind the scene. So that's been helpful because, you know, we're used to negotiating with Westerners. A lot of Iranians don't think the way we do, certainly not their tyrannical leadership. And so having intermediaries who've dealt with them for a long time and can interpret what's rhetoric, what's a real offer, what's a head fake, has been very helpful to people like Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio in these last few days when the negotiations got a little bit more serious. I think early on, Iran was really just saying stuff and not meaning it. There is some verifiable steps that Iran's been taking in the last couple of days, suggesting they're a little bit more serious right now.
Judge Weinberg.
John, I want to welcome back. I just want to shift gears for a little bit. In your blog today, you had a very interesting piece about what the state government of Colorado has done in trying to impose sanctuary city mandates on the lawyers, saying that if the lawyers do not certify they will not cooperate with ICE, then it will not allow them to do e-filings.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that all about?
It's trying to create one more bureaucratic roadblock to make it almost impossible for ICE to arrest people in the safest manner. Listen, the safest way, everyone will tell you, down to the person, down to the officer, down to the sheriff, the police chief, the safest way to apprehend a criminal illegal alien is to get them in the jail while local police have them. These sanctuary states, Virginia is a great example. The new Governor Spanberger, who, by the way, her popularity is on a nosedive. She's got the lowest popularity of any governor in recent Virginia history, and she's only been in office 3 months. Why? Because she's taken steps like making it harder and harder for cops to cooperate in Virginia with their ICE and their CPB colleagues in the federal government. So what they're doing is creating lots of obstacles that confuse the public. Oh, it sounds like you've created a process to cooperate, when in fact it's a process designed to fail and make sure that ICE never can pick up someone in a jail in a simple way. And I think that conversation we had yesterday, a lot more people are starting to talk about the notion of using the Alien Harboring Act against a state or city one time to see whether the courts will go with it. If that were ever to succeed, every sanctuary state, every sanctuary cop, every sanctuary chief, every sanctuary sheriff and jailer would suddenly be looking at prison time. That might change this dynamic pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John Solomon, keep us posted. Thank you. What a big news day. We appreciate it, John. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you.
Let's go to New Jersey right now. There's an election going on in New Jersey. And we have Joe Hathaway is running for the open congressional seat in New Jersey. And the election is April 12th next week.
Early voting started.
But early voting has started. Joe Hathaway, tell us about yourself and tell all of New Jersey who you are.
Hey, John, Rita, Judge, thanks so much for having me back on, guys. Really appreciate it. You're right. We have our special election here in NJ11 coming up. It's actually next Thursday, April 16th, but early voting is going on right now from yesterday all the way through till the 12th, till Tuesday the 12th. And I got to tell you, Republicans have a huge job to do because we are running a common sense, practical campaign that can win in New Jersey and has the benefit of stopping a radical socialist squad candidate right in her tracks.
And you're the candidate you're running against, I don't even know her name, is another Bernie Sanders person?
Yeah, tell us about her.
Yeah, well, look, she checks every box to be a squad-endorsed AOC 2.0 kind of candidate. She's worked on Bernie's presidential campaigns. She's run the Working Families Party of New Jersey that pushes policies to defund police and eliminate single-family zoning houses. I mean, the most progressive radical you can get. She checks the box. That's why we're going to win this thing, though, because most New Jerseyans are completely opposed to that kind of rhetoric and that kind of positions. And we're going to be able to bring together our Republicans, but also independent and even some Democrat voters, too, who know that this is wrong for New Jersey and they want common sense, practical leadership.
Craig Eaton.
Joe, I was the Republican chairman here in Brooklyn for 12 years, and we were very, very good friends and supporters of Jack Ciattarelli. In fact, I spoke to Jack last week. And whatever we can do, I have a lot of friends in Randolph and in Morris County, so I'll reach out to your campaign tomorrow. Maybe you could send me some literature or things that I can put on my social media, because we have a lot of friends out there, and we need to make sure that we keep this seat.
Well, absolutely. We are all hands on deck right now, Judge. So we'll take everybody on board. This is New Jersey's Republican race right now. So we need all hands on deck. We have, about a week to go. So anyone in your network and anyone in the state and any of your listeners who want to get involved, they can visit us at joehathawayforcongress.com. They can sign up to door knock, make phone calls, and help us get over the hump here. This is a big opportunity for us. We're excited about it.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you so much luck. We're going to be talking with you, I'm sure, in the coming days, Joe. And everybody, get out and vote now. And obviously, the election day is next Thursday, the 16th. But early voting starts, so get out and vote. A lot at stake there, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, everybody now wondering with the deadline with President Trump. Now we're just a little over 2 hours away. So what's going to happen tonight? And what about threats to the homeland? And what about some of the people who are already here in our country? Well, joining us now is Charles Marino. He's a former Homeland Security Department advisor, also former Secret Service agent. Charles, your thoughts, first of all, how big are the threats to the homeland right now? And especially as we're heading into what could be a very pivotal night in the war.
Well, right now, Rita, I think the country faces more threats from more places at any time in our history as a country. And we know that these global events all have a direct impact against the country and our threat level here and the required preparation that we need. Now, we're also on the heels of 4 years under the Biden administration of allowing the country to be infiltrated with many of those threats from around the world, so they now reside within our own borders.
Is any of our cities in the United States under red alert or anything?
Well, we don't do the colors anymore. I actually helped transition to the new system that we use, the National Terrorism Advisory System. An elevated bulletin has not been issued by the Department of Homeland Security. I believe that there should be an elevated bulletin that gets sent out. I believe that law enforcement and the American people need to be on the same page when it comes to not only the threats against the country, but also how to prepare and help mitigate those threats against themselves and their families. I think law enforcement is already operating in many places like New York City, for example, at that elevated level, but it's not been formally adjusted by DHS. And I think the time has come, especially based on the increase in actions against Iran. I think that needs to happen.
You know, Charles Marino, Homeland Security Advisor, this is shocking to me, Charles, that these people were in our country. We found out about the niece and the grandniece of Soleimani, who was taking out the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps general, and they were living among us. And we know that Rubio just announced that he's revoking the green cards. Then in the last few hours, there was the son of the woman known as Screaming Mary. This is the woman who was screaming every day when our hostages, the 444 days our hostages were held in the 1970s in Iran. And I just read this too, Charles. I couldn't believe this. The son's father, the same, obviously the mother was out there screaming against America every day. Very famous face. And then the father was actually in the room when our Americans were being tortured. And this guy is a professor right now in California. How is that possible?
Yeah, well, we see, especially during the Biden administration, how all of these, what are normally legal pathways into the United States, were exploited and undercut. Things like asylum, temporary protective status, and these visas having to do with education and tourism. They were all undercut, not enforced. Those that were coming in, not vetted, which is why you're seeing the Trump administration do the right thing now and really crack down, and in some cases terminate things like asylum requests that were found to be fraudulent, or temporary protective status where there's just no way to vet people from certain parts of the world. But, I think the American people would be surprised, Rita, on how many of our adversaries have people here in the United States participating in many universities around the country. And many are directly related to the people that run these adversarial countries. I think Iran is a great example. China, as we know, under Biden's open borders, we saw an over 2,000% increase in Chinese nationals, males ages 18 to 45. I can assure you that should be concerning for everybody, as it is to me, on the threat that poses, not only for intellectual property theft and things like that, but also to begin a targeting of critical infrastructure and other things should a conflict with China arise. Why not start a war against us from right inside our own country?
Right, a sleeper cell. Judge Weinberg.
See, I think you're exactly right, Charles. And I'll tell you what troubles me. Why are we still allowing the Chinese to buy land near our military bases? Why are we still training engineers at our great universities for the Chinese to exploit them, to use them here, or to go back to China and use their knowledge against us? Why are we doing these business deals with them that allow them to have total control of our need for chips when they're threatening Taiwan? Why do we allow this? They're in a state of war against us. What does it take for us to recognize that and to do something about it?
Well, and let me ask the question this way. How easy is it for one of us to go visit China or go visit Russia? Do they not secure their borders? Do they not enforce their immigration laws? Of course they do. The United States is one of the most lax countries in the world when it comes to our actual border security and immigration laws. And that needs to be changed. We're seeing big changes here under the Trump administration, and rightfully so. You can't have anything close to Homeland Security without a secure border and enforcing the laws of this country. So what we saw under the Biden administration was really the anomaly. And I'm speaking about previous administrations, both Democratic and Republican. Never did you see anyone walk away from their federal responsibilities of protecting this country the way the Biden administration did.
I agree. And none of them have been held accountable. And yet today they're talking about, the Democrats are talking about impeaching Trump. Mayorkas sailed through. They knew what they were doing. And to this day, no one on that regime, 20 million people plus coming into this country, have been held responsible. It's a travesty.
They told us the border was closed. We're safe. There's no problem.
Right. With a smile. It's frightening. Charles, thank you so much. We love you. Really appreciate it, Charles. Thank you.
Rita.
Thank you.
Good to be with you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And John, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk to Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne as the countdown continues.
Let's see what she's heard.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, the clock is ticking. You guys, it is pretty much 2 hours until the deadline now to see what President Trump will do. He said, Iran, come to the table or else. And joining us now to see what she's hearing and what she thinks may happen tonight and what she thinks needs to happen tonight is Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from the great state of Texas. Congresswoman, we love you. What are you hearing and what do you think may portend tonight?
Look, I mean, I think the president has been very clear, has been very strong in his message. Anybody who is listening and paying attention, he not only, comes out with very strong language, like a leader does, but he's also following it up with very strong action, with the most strategic and effective military this world has ever known. I've been so impressed with the U.S. military. I think they have been very surgical in their attacks. I mean, I understand that they have been striking military targets, on Karg Island. Israel at the same time has been attacking, some of the infrastructure, like I think they did 8 bridge sections, which was moving weapons and equipment across Iran to be able to conduct further strikes. The missiles that Iran has sent out, and they're still doing that. Not only are they targeting Israel, but I also understand in the last 12 hours that they sent out missiles that hit as far away as Saudi Arabia. What we need to make sure is that those missiles, which they have already proven could be launched as far as London, do not have nuclear capabilities. I think this president has been very transparent. He has been very deliberate, saying this is what we are trying to prevent. You have had a regime that's been at war with us for the last 47 years who claims that they will, and ultimately their goal is to destroy Western, the Western civilization, starting with Israel, following up with the United States. So I think what's going to end up happening is the targets that they are already have achieved much of the mission. I think he's going to come back. He's going to be very clear with the United States. This is what we have been able to achieve. And then he's going to leave it up to Iran. Do you want to continue this destruction and potentially, hurt your future ability to be able to grow and to succeed? Or do you want to be able to work with us on a ceasefire and all that entails?
Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, I wonder, have your Democratic colleagues truly lost their mind? Honestly, I couldn't believe I've been watching today. Blumenthal of Connecticut, the senator, calls it war crimes. Ro Khanna of California calls Trump a war criminal. Seth Moulton calls Pete Hegseth Department of War Crimes. They didn't say a word when Iran was killing its own people. Or if it was very low. It was very tepid. They didn't say anything. And yet, because President Trump's trying to wipe an evil regime off the map, to me, it's un-American and it's shocking and it's such a new low.
Just yesterday, Iran was hanging protesters. Just yesterday, where is their outrage? But not to mention the fact that, look, LBJ targeted, power plants in North Vietnam. You had both Bushes that targeted Iraq's power grid. You had Bill Clinton that went after, Serbia's energy structure. Obama, did the same thing in Libya. This is what war looks like. It is not pretty. But this has been a war that Iran has been against the entire Western civilization for 47 years. My Democrat friends hate Trump more than they love this country, have no problem undermining, just because it's Trump doing it. But here's the other problem. When you start whipping out war crimes, not only are you attacking the president for committing war crimes, you are also attacking our military for carrying them out. So unless they are prepared to not only go after our president, but our military members who are so strategic, so effective, and showing the world how deadly and effective they are, they need to stop They need to stop this rhetoric because it's very dangerous. They have no real intention of doing it other than to continue with the Trump derangement syndrome that all of them just seem to be working under.
I agree. It's so destructive. Craig Eaton.
You know what I think they need to do, Congresswoman? They need to take off their Democratic hats and put on their American hats. We are all Americans. They are all Americans.
That's a good idea.
They need to look at what's happening to America, what's happening to our Americans and our soldiers and our military, and what could potentially happen here on our soil and the soil around this world. That's what they need to look at. It's very simple. They got to get off the Trump derangement syndrome train and get on the American train.
And you know what I worry about, Craig, too?
I could not agree with you more.
I worry it's also going to be used for propaganda. Because I worry that, you know what's going to happen in some country where they don't like us? They're going to say, look what congressman of the U.S. says this. They're not going to know it's all part of the Trump derangement syndrome, to your point, Craig.
No, I mean, you're right. And nothing makes me more sick than to see U.S. representatives, U.S. senators going overseas and undermining America. And they have been doing it ever since Trump, his first 4 years in office, his last year in office. They have been doing it. We were unable to go to some of our NATO summits because of the shutdown that Democrats caused. By not funding during a time of war, during a time of national security crisis. They didn't think it was important that we actually had a funded Homeland Security agency. So we were not able to go as Republican Congress members according to our rules. It did not stop members of the Democrat Senate or the Democrat Congress members. So they have been going, whether or not it was the Munich Security Summit, whether or not it was the NATO Summit in Brussels, and completely undermining the president's very strong message of America first, America strength, leadership. And you're right, this will be used as political rhetoric by our enemies. And you have seen these U.S. Congress members defending our enemies, all to hate on Trump because they are concerned about losing power in the midterm. It is disgraceful. It is an embarrassment. And I agree with you 100%. Put on your American hat. That is the country in which you live. It's the country in which you represent. Start doing it.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne, thank you. We love having you join us. Pray for America tonight because it could be a very pivotal.
The final countdown, 2 hours.
Less than 2 hours.
1 hour and 53 minutes.
Yeah, isn't that wild? I mean, we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
And you know what we all stand for, Congresswoman?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.